What would you do if the house your mother left you, your only real home, suddenly wasn't yours anymore? My name's Emily. I'm 22, freshly graduated from Colorado State University with honors and a job offer waiting for me in Denver. On paper, life looks great, but no one warns you that growing up means watching the ground beneath your feet shift in ways you never expected. My mom passed away 4 years ago, stage 4 intestinal cancer, brutal, fast, and cruel. She fought like hell, but cancer doesn't care how strong you are. She was gone within months. I was 18, raw with grief, lost in the chaos of college applications and funeral arrangements. But through it all, she made one thing clear. I would always have a home. She left me the house. Her house. Our house. A modest 2-story craftsman in the suburbs of Denver. With rose bushes she planted herself and a porch swing that creaked like it remembered every story we ever whispered there. No debt, no mortgage, just a legacy. That house became my anchor, my refuge, my reason to keep going. But I didn't know back then that the people I trusted most would try to take it from me. Not yet. Not then. I still remember the day he walked out the door without looking back. That's when I learned some people don't need to shout to abandon you. They just leave quietly, and that's worse. My dad, Richard, left on a crisp fall morning when I was just 9. No screaming. No dramatic scene. Just silence. My mom stood in the kitchen, clutching a coffee mug like it was the only thing keeping her grounded, watching through the window as he wheeled his suitcase across the porch. He didn't say goodbye, didn't kneel to hug me or whisper some reassuring promise. He just got in his car, started the engine, and drove away. I didn't know it then, but he had left us for another woman, Karen. They met at a business conference in Austin. Within a year, they were married. And soon after that, their daughter Lily was born. Lily, my half-sister, 10 years younger than me, bright-eyed, adorable, and doted on like a little doll. I visited a few times. Karen always smiled and offered me juice or cookies, but there was a certain tightness in her eyes, a polite stiffness, like I was a guest who'd stayed too long. Maybe it was all in my head, or maybe it wasn't, because every time I walked into that rented house, I felt like I was stepping into a family portrait I didn't belong in. Dad used to say, "Sweetheart, I'm still your father." Yeah, maybe. Legally. But in real life, I was just the chapter he skipped when he started a new book. There are battles you can't win, but my mom fought like hell anyway, and in the end, she won the only one that mattered, making sure I'd have a future, even if she couldn't be in it. I was 14 when the world quietly flipped upside down, not with an explosion or a scream, but with a doctor's steady voice saying, "It's stage 4 colorectal cancer." At first, I didn't grasp it. I just noticed Mom sleeping more, smiling less. But one thing she never did? Quit. She walked into battle with her chin high, resigned from her job as senior accountant, sold her car, and dove headfirst into chemo, surgeries, scans, and hospital halls that reeked of antiseptic and fear. Those 4 years were brutal. We lived from treatment to treatment, measuring time in hospital bracelets and the days her nausea was too much to hide. But through it all, she never stopped preparing. She made lists, passwords, insurance contacts, mortgage records, and she called our lawyer. She had one mission left, to make sure the house, the only real thing we had left, would be mine. "One day, you'll need a place to start your life," she told me, her voice thin but clear. "This house will be that place." It was more than a roof. It was where she taught me how to ride a bike, where we baked cookies every Christmas, where I taped my first drawing to the fridge and she didn't take it down for 2 years. She died when I was 18, just weeks before I left Colorado for my freshman year. I lost my mom, but I still had the house. At least, that's what I believed. At the time, I thought they were here to help me heal. Turns out, they were settling in. Mom passed away just weeks before I was supposed to leave for college. The grief hit like a wrecking ball, loud, then suddenly quiet, the kind of silence that echoes. I moved through the days like a ghost in my own home, unsure of what was real and what was just memory. Then Dad called. "Karen and we want to come help," he said. "Just for a while. You shouldn't be alone right now." And just like that, they arrived, with Lily in tow, clinging to a stuffed bunny and stepping into the house like it had always been hers. At first, I was grateful. Karen cooked. She organized the pantry. She lit candles at night like she was purifying the air of sorrow. Lily tiptoed into my room and asked if I wanted to play Uno. Dad, who had once only existed in holiday cards, was suddenly making coffee every morning like he'd never left. Then, one quiet Sunday morning over breakfast, Dad slid a mug toward me and cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he said. "While you're at college, maybe we stay here. We'll take care of the house, pay the bills. You won't have to worry about anything." Karen looked up from the stove, flipping an egg. "It'd be good for all of us," she chimed in. "Lily just got into the local elementary school." I said yes, because I thought they were helping, because I wanted to believe in second chances. But here's the thing about letting people in. Sometimes they never leave. It's hard to notice you're sinking when everything above the surface looks picture perfect. College flew by faster than I ever imagined. I was just 2 hours away at CU Boulder, and every break, Thanksgiving, Christmas, summers, I came home. And each time, someone was there waiting on the porch. Karen would open the door with a warm smile. "You're just in time. I made lasagna, your favorite." Lily, no longer a quiet 8-year-old, would drag me upstairs to show me her latest artwork or fill me in on middle school drama. And Dad? He started calling me his big girl in front of guests, like he'd never stopped being my father. We decorated the Christmas tree together, argued about tinsel versus no tinsel. We prepped side dishes on Thanksgiving like some kind of choreographed family unit. In the summers, Lily and I hung out by the community pool, and Karen started inviting me to her book club. We actually laughed about cheesy romance novels. "I love how close you two have gotten," I overheard her telling Dad once. "It's nice having Emily home." And I believed it. I really did. I thought we were healing, that we'd somehow pieced together something real from all that was broken. What I didn't see was the quiet shifting beneath the surface, the kind of shift that only matters once the cracks start to show. I came home with a college degree, a job offer, and a key that no longer fit the lock. It was one of those golden June afternoons, warm, breezy, perfect. I stepped out of the taxi and wheeled my suitcase up the familiar stone path. Mom's rose bushes were in full bloom, though trimmed differently than she would have liked. The curtains were new, thinner, colder. Still, I smiled. This was my home. I reached into my bag, pulled out the brass key Mom had once pressed into my palm, and slid it into the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again, harder. Still nothing. My chest tightened. No, this had to be a mistake. I knocked, firm, rapid, panicked. Karen opened the door, wearing a flour-covered apron, mid-bake. Her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. "Emily, what are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" "This is my house," I said flatly, wheeling my suitcase across the threshold. I spotted Dad in the living room, lounging in what used to be Mom's favorite armchair. Lily was sprawled on the couch, eyes glued to her phone. Neither looked thrilled to see me. "The locks," I said. "What happened?" Dad rubbed the back of his neck, his old nervous habit. "Oh, yeah, I changed them. Just, neighborhood break-ins. Thought it was safer. And no one thought to tell me or send me a key." Karen's arms folded across her chest. "We didn't expect you back so soon." I had graduated. I'd told them I was coming. They knew. But clearly, they hadn't planned for it. And right then I knew something was very, very wrong. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with shouting. It comes with a quiet confession from someone who should have stood by you. Dad cleared his throat. "Can we talk? In the office?" I followed him into what used to be Mom's study. Her framed degrees still hung on the wall. Her accounting books lined the shelves. Everything looked frozen in time, like she might walk in any second, sit down, and start working again. He closed the door behind us. His hands were trembling. "There's something I need to tell you," he said softly. I didn't say a word. "Karen? She thinks the house is mine," he admitted, eyes cast down. "She believes I gave it to your mom as a favor after the divorce, and that when your mom passed, it reverted to me." My stomach dropped. "You lied to her?" He flinched. "I didn't correct her. She never would have moved in otherwise. I thought I could fix it later." "And what about me?" I whispered. "Did you ever plan to tell me that you were letting her believe I didn't belong in my own home?" He held out a set of new keys like a peace offering. "You still own it. Legally, it's yours. I just need a little time to talk to her. Please, Emily. A few weeks. That's all I'm asking. I took the keys with a shaking hand. So this was it. They were living in my mother's house, my house, on the foundation of a lie, and I was the one being treated like I didn't belong. When I stepped back into the living room, Karen looked at me like I was an intruder. And now I understood why. She never knew the truth, but I did now. Sometimes silence isn't agreement. It's shock so deep you don't even know how to breathe, let alone speak. I gripped the new set of keys like they might anchor me to something solid. Dad's voice wavered, desperate. Just give me a few weeks, Emily. Let me handle this. Please, don't blow up my marriage. What marriage? What family? But I said nothing. No accusations. No screaming. Just a quiet nod. Not because I forgave him, but because I was too stunned to do anything else. That night at dinner, everything felt off. Karen wore a tight smile, her eyes flicking to me across the table like she expected me to explode. Dad talked about work. Lily barely looked up from her phone. No one said a word about what had happened. And I didn't either. I was starting a new job in 2 weeks. I didn't want a war. I didn't want chaos. But I noticed things. How Karen removed the fourth place setting from the table like it was a mistake. How she ignored me when I offered to do the dishes. How Lily, who once begged me to braid her hair, now referred to me as her when talking to friends. Never my sister. I kept my silence. But they made their stance clear. I was living in a house they believed no longer belonged to me. People don't always need to kick you out with words. Sometimes it's the way they look at you, or don't, that says, you don't belong here. The next 2 weeks felt like a slow, silent war. Karen never yelled. That wasn't her style. Instead, she weaponized politeness. She made dinner. For 3. She did laundry, but tossed my whites in with darks, leaving everything a dingy gray. If I sat on the couch to watch TV, she'd suddenly need to vacuum right there. If I tried to make coffee, she'd barge in and reorganize the cabinets, muttering about how no one ever puts things where they belong. Mom's favorite vase, the one that had sat in the center of the living room for years, disappeared one day. I found it shoved behind a door on a back shelf. Karen's explanation? It didn't match the new aesthetic. And Lily? She used to beg me to help her with her homework. Now, she barely looked at me. When she talked to her friends on the phone, she called me that girl. Never Emily. Never sister. It was death by 1,000 passive-aggressive paper cuts. They didn't have to tell me to leave. They made me feel like I should. I stayed quiet. I didn't start a fight. But every second I spent inside the house my mother left me, I felt like I was disappearing, like I was being erased from my own life. People don't always say, get out. Sometimes they just smile and say, maybe it's time you had your own place. And it cuts just the same. That morning, I had just poured myself a cup of coffee when Karen stepped into the kitchen. She was still in her robe, hair uncombed, but her eyes were laser-focused. Emily, she said, leaning casually against the counter. We should talk. I turned, coffee mug in hand. Sure. You've got that new job starting next week, right? Yeah. I nodded slowly. Well, maybe it's time you start thinking about finding your own place. She smiled, almost sweetly. You're a grown woman now. It just makes sense. I swallowed hard. I already talked to Dad. He's okay with me staying here for a while. Her lips tightened into a thin, polite line. She didn't argue. She just left the kitchen. No drama. No slamming doors. Just silence. And a chill that clung to me long after she was gone. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. Because I was trying to keep the peace. Trying not to be the reason everything shattered again. But deep down, I knew the truth. To them, I had never really belonged. Sometimes betrayal doesn't show up as a scream. It shows up as silence and an empty house. It was Saturday morning. No clattering dishes from Karen in the kitchen. No sports commentary from Dad's TV in the living room. No music blasting from Lily's room upstairs. Just silence. Too quiet. I walked from room to room, calling names no one answered. The house was spotless, unnaturally clean, like it had been staged for an open house, except it wasn't for sale. And I hadn't been invited to leave. There was no note, no text, nothing. I called Dad. Voicemail. Again, voicemail. I called Karen. She answered on the 4th ring, just as I was about to hang up. What do you want? Her voice was sharp. Ice cold. I just woke up. No one's here. Where is everyone? A pause. Then a laugh ran cutting. Hawaii, first-class flights, oceanfront resort. You didn't know? No, no one told me anything. That's because we didn't want you there. Then came the knife. You think we're just going to keep paying for you to freeload forever? You're a parasite, Emily, living in a house you didn't earn. It's pathetic. My hands trembled. I couldn't speak. And in the background, I could hear my dad's voice, muffled, distant. But he didn't say a word. He let her talk to me like that. I ended the call, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. Gratitude has its limits, and that morning I hit mine in the house my mother built for me. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't waiting for a text, wasn't hoping for an apology that would never come. I was angry, the kind of anger that settles deep and burns slow. I called a locksmith, 24-hour service, told them I needed someone immediately. While I waited, I packed Karen's designer sweaters, her overpriced heels, her cookbooks and fancy skincare, all neatly folded into boxes. No destruction, no drama, just a reclaiming. Lily's stuffed animals, school projects, glitter pens, they went in too. I wrapped everything with care, not out of kindness, out of finality. Dad's golf clubs, finance magazines, and his beat-up slippers that always sat by the back door, into the pile. I wheeled everything into the garage. By the time the locksmith arrived, I was standing by the front door like I had been waiting for this moment my whole life. He looked at me, and he didn't ask questions, just nodded like he knew. 3 locks, 3 clicks, 3 lines drawn in steel. I paid with my own credit card. Then I stood in the kitchen, Mom's kitchen, and I breathed. For the first time in years, I felt like I had taken back something no one had the right to take. Not out of rage, out of survival, out of truth. Locks keep doors closed, but truth kicks them wide open. I pulled into the driveway just as the sun was setting, and there they were, standing on the porch like strangers. Karen, red-faced, Dad, pale, Lily, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. The rental car still hummed behind them, its trunk popped. Suitcases sat like afterthoughts, like they hadn't expected to need them. Karen spotted me first. "What the hell, Emily? You changed the locks? Are you insane?" I didn't flinch. I stepped out of the car, walked right past them, pulled out my new set of keys, and slid one into the front door. Click! "You can't do this," she shouted. "This is our house. This is breaking and entering." I turned around, met her eyes, and said, calm and cutting, "No, Karen, it's my house. My mother bought it before she ever met my dad. She left it to me, in her will. You've been living here because I allowed it." She blinked, laughed, sharp, defensive. "Richard, seriously? You're just gonna let her lie like that?" Dad didn't move, didn't defend her. He stared down at the porch beneath his feet, then nodded. "She's telling the truth," he said, voice low. I watched Karen's face crumble in real time. The fury drained from her, leaving only disbelief. "You lied to me?" she whispered. "For 4 years?" "I thought you'd never move in if you knew," he replied, almost ashamed. Silence, thick as tar. Then Karen did what manipulators do best, shifted, fur spet. Her voice softened into something sugary and fake. "Oh, Emily, sweetheart, this is all just a big misunderstanding. I was stressed, the trip, the heat. I didn't mean anything I said. We're family, right?" I looked her straight in the eye, steady, cold. "No, we never were. If you have to fake love to stay, then it was never love to begin with." Karen flipped faster than a light switch. One moment she was spitting venom. The next, she was stepping forward, arms open, voice soft and sugar-laced. "Emily, sweetheart, I lost my temper. Things got out of hand. But you know how much we care. We're family." Didn't blink. "I remember what you said on the phone, Karen." Her smile faltered, just for a second. "The heat, the stress. Maybe too many Mai Tais," she laughed, airy and forced. "I didn't mean it. We've all said things we regret. Look, if you need space, we understand." Then she glanced at Dad like he was her final lifeline. "If it helps," she added, voice perky now, desperate, "we can pay rent. Real rent. Draw up an agreement. We'll stay out of your way. Just let's not throw everything away over a misunderstanding." I looked at her, at the woman who erased me at every dinner table, who rebranded grief into decor, who stood by as her daughter stopped calling me her sister. And suddenly, it was so clear. They hadn't come to help me heal. They came to take up space. "No," I said quietly, firmly. "Your things are in the garage. Take them. Tonight." Her mouth dropped open. "You can't do that." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't flinch. I just did. I wasn't throwing them out. I was reclaiming the space they tried to erase me from. They stood there on the porch like ghosts, like if they waited long enough, I'd undo it all. Take it back. Apologize. But I didn't. Your things are in the garage, I said, voice steady. Take them and go. Karen's face twisted, all the sugar gone now, just raw bitterness. You ungrateful little brat, after everything we did for you? I didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't argue. I just looked her in the eye and stayed still, unshaken. Lily started to cry, silent and tense, her fists balled at her sides. The same girl who once begged me to braid her hair now stared at me like she didn't know who I was. Maybe she didn't, but I did. Dad stepped forward, voice cracking with guilt. Emily, please, I know I messed up, but you don't have to do this. I turned to him, really looked at him, at the man who once called me his big girl in front of dinner guests, the man who used to read me bedtime stories and make pancakes with chocolate chips, the same man who stood silent while I was slowly pushed out of my own home. You already did this, I said softly, when you stayed silent. Karen was still yelling, words sharp as knives, words meant to wound, but they bounced right off me. I stepped inside, held the door for no one, and closed it behind me. Not in anger, in clarity, because this time, I chose me. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt, because what's on the other side isn't worth going back for. Dad still calls sometimes, from new numbers. Occasional texts too. Are you okay? I read them, but I don't respond. I'm not angry anymore. Just done. The house is quiet now, but it's the kind of quiet that feels like peace, not punishment. No side eyes, no slammed cabinets, no whispered conversations that stop when I walk into the room. I repainted the living room walls, a soft blue, Mom's favorite, planted new rose bushes on the front lawn, the kind she used to call roses that remember. Put her photo back on the mantle, exactly where Karen once tried to hide it. I started my job at a financial firm downtown. Corner desk, window view, kind coworkers. I make my own coffee now, and for the first time in a long time, I feel whole. Even when I'm alone. No more ghosts knocking at my door. No more roles to play, just me, and the echo of my mother's love in every wall of this house. I'm not lost, I'm home, and I'm finally Emily. Not everyone who calls themselves family deserves a key to your peace. Sometimes healing means locking the door and never opening it again. This story isn't about revenge. It's about clarity. About a girl who thought silence would buy her belonging, who believed that if she played small enough, quiet enough, long enough, she'd finally be accepted. She lost her mother too young. And for a while, she almost lost herself trying to keep the wrong people comfortable in the home her mother built. But in the end, she made the right choice. She chose to protect what truly mattered, not just the walls and windows, but the memory, the legacy, and the self-worth woven into every corner of that house. Emily didn't become bitter. She became clear. She didn't need Karen to apologize. Didn't need her father to make amends. Because she had something they could never take. Strength, memory, and a home that finally belonged to her in every way. And if anyone ever asks, was it worth it? She'll smile and say, yes, because in the end, I didn't just take back the house, I took back me.